Welcome to an episode of Behind the Scenes, a weekly program unveiling the biggest political developments in Somali politics. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and co-producer here on Wararka Media alongside Suleiman Hashi. On this week's program, in a bombshell speech in front of Southwest State MPs and Senators, Southwest leader and President Abdulaziz Leftagaren discussed and exposed what he described as a hijacked election committee and an unjust and illegal targeting of Southwest MPs in a politically motivated plot to hinder the election. This comes after Southwest State cut ties with the Office of the Prime Minister over election implementation. As the rift between the Office of the Prime Minister and Southwest State continued to deteriorate, how accurate is the statement that FEIT has lost all independence? Also on the program, with nearly 100 MPs and Senators not in Mogadishu or yet to even be elected, can the inauguration ceremony of MPs and Senators continue? And can there be an election of speakers and an eventual president without these numbers? Now, these are the topics on the program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to Wararka Media. Also, do subscribe to Wararka Media Group's second channel known as Wararka TV, where you can find exclusive programs such as Dolmar and Maha Hisala, among others. Last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider Wararka Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Now, before I begin the program today, I'd like to congratulate the serving soldiers of the Somali National Army and their families on the commemoration day of the founding of our armed forces. We dearly celebrate you for your victories in the battlefront against terrorists, your bravery, patriotism, and serving the Somali nation with pride. Now let's get straight into the news. Now, following growing tensions between Bay Double and the Office of the Prime Minister, Southwest State leader Leftagaren called on Southwest State MPs and Senators to return to the transitional capital Bay Double to receive a briefing regarding the current impasse with Prime Minister Roble following the decision by Leftagaren to cut ties with the Office of the Prime Minister regarding election implementation. Now, 74 of the 77 parliamentarians returned and watched the president speak and expose some of the behind-the-scenes rifts between Somali leaders, especially concerning the Federal Election Implementation Team, also known as FEIT, which has been under constant civil war and infighting over the last year, with a new leader eventually being elected earlier this year. Now, Leftagaren made it clear that the halting of the 3 seats in Southwest State were both not just unjustified, but politically motivated, highlighting the correct procedure was followed for all seats mentioned by FEIT. Instead, Leftagaren conveyed other underlying reasons as to why FEIT has demanded those seats to be re-elected in Mogadishu. FEIT went from 25-member committee to just a 3-man team, representing only 3 signatories of the 27th May agreement: Musa Gele, who represents Puntland, and 2 other members including Liban Mohammed Hassan from the Office of the Prime Minister and one from Jubaland, explained President Leftagaren. Now, the infighting and the division within FEIT is nothing new. In late December 2021, former chairman of the committee, Mohammed Hassan Erro, accused the Office of the Prime Minister and unnamed officials of the federal government of, and I quote, blatantly interfering in the committee to not just discredit FEIT, but also create confusion on social media and amongst the Somali public. Chairman Erro went on to say that the responsibility of, and I quote, any chaos, delay, or confusion will be a direct result of those engaging in the naked meddling and interference of FEIT decision-making. Now, indeed, as many of you probably remember, the Federal Election Implementation Team's social media platforms were abruptly overrun and began posting press releases that were against the initial statements being made by the chairman, ultimately resulting in large-scale confusion amongst Somali observers. For instance, in a statement circulated in the week of the 20th of December 2021 via FEIT's social media pages, it stated the determination of Chairman Erro and Deputy Matan of their official duties. Now, this statement was denied by the chairman the following day. And what was evident during this time was there was a clear attempt to not just undermine, but to oust the chairman by sowing division and confusion amongst FEIT members. Additionally, many opposition politicians consistently accused former chairman Mohammed Erro of being pro-federal government or Villa Somalia, albeit there has been no direct evidence of this. Loftegren, however, went on to accuse some of the federal member states and the Office of Prime Minister of colluding to hijack FEIT. He explained, and I'm quoting, "I raised the division and the destruction of FEIT during the National Consultative Council meeting. I understood that the NCC would address this problem, but it was never raised again." Now, we've always been part of the solution and not the problem, President Loftegren said. Whenever we agreed to an election framework, there was always another federal member state that would raise the concerns. While we could continue holding the elections, we would always decide to wait for the greater good of Somalia and for Somalia's unity, explained President Loftegren. Indeed, there is a requirement for consensus between all parties involved for the election to be held simultaneously. If we look at the events that unfolded in Mogadishu in early 2021, the leaders of Puntland and Jubbaland, Saeed Deni and Ahmed Mohamed Islam Madobe, had concerns regarding President Farmajo's impartiality. Now, irrespective of whether those concerns were justified or had any meaning, those concerns were addressed with the election being postponed until the 27th May agreement between the National Consultative Council. We also all remember the key role played by both Loftegren, President Ahmed Kariye Qoqor of Galmudug, and of Ali Goodlawe of Hirshabelle, not only in the mediation between the presidency and federal member states of Puntland and Jubbaland, but also the diffusing of tensions between opposition figures and the federal government following violence in the capital in April of last year. Now, the essence of these points is that Southwest State has been instrumental in not only maintaining peace, but also sustaining a sense of unity in a much fractured society. Indeed, this is the reality. Under the 27th of May agreement, any issues being raised by a federal member state must be addressed at the National Consultative Council, with a solution to the impasse being reached in unison. This occurred during the issues being raised by Jubbaland and Hirshabelle, for example, concerning elections in Garbahare and Beledweyne. The simple fact that the Office of the Prime Minister and supporting federal member states refused to address the issue at the National Consultative Council undermines all previous agreements that underpin the election process. Now, what I want to make clear to readers and viewers is that the Office of the Prime Minister and federal member states that are supporting it are not one giant faction. Instead, they just have aligning interests. For example, let's take Puntland, for instance. Saeed Deni obviously has interest, and we all now know is intending to run as president. So, of course, to Saeed Deni, anything that could hinder his major opposition, President Farmajo, would of course be beneficial, and therefore he would do and work with anyone that could achieve that. Let's take, for example, the leader of Jubbaland, Mohamed Islam Madobe. He obviously has interest to remain in office, and this current administration led by Farmajo has not recognized the election result in 2019. And of course, to Madobe, the hindering of the re-election of Farmajo is within his interest. So therefore, there's different factors at play here, but there is aligning interests, and that's why the Office of the Prime Minister, for instance, could possibly be working or could be colluding, as Loftegren has put it, with other federal member states. Now, these are all, of course, allegations, and these are just being analyzed and addressed in this program. Now, what are the 4 seats that have been refused by FEIT? Let's look at them individually. The first seat is HOP 204, or House of Parliament seat 204. This seat was previously held by the current Defence Minister and close ally of Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble, Mohamed Noor Jama, and has been won by MP-elect Isaaq Ali Subag. Now, this seat has been contested by the Defence Minister Jama, who alleges that he was denied the opportunity to compete. The second seat is Parliamentary seat 86, and this seat has previously held by Farah Sheikh Abdul Qadir, but has now been won by MP-elect Fahad Yassin Haji Tahir. Now, FEIT has conveyed that this seat's result was contested by elders and clan members. The third seat is Parliamentary seat 103, and this seat was previously held by former Lower House Speaker Muhammad Isman Jawari, but has now been won by Muhammad Ali Hassan. Now, Mr. Jawari has also alleged that he was refused the chance to compete for this seat in Bay Double. And finally, seat 154, this seat was successfully retained by MP Sareda Mohamed Abdullah. Now, FEIT alleges that following investigations they conducted, they found that one of the candidates competing with Sareda in the election of the seat was under the age of 25, and as a result, FEIT finds this as sufficient grounds to reconduct elections for that seat. Now, upon simple surface inspection, the issues being raised by FEIT seem to be justified, but there is underlying problems, and let's address these problems individually. And some of the criticism that can be raised, for instance, is we saw the election of 16 MPs within 1 hour. Now, of course, this is the incorrect procedure. The correct procedure was for 8 MPs to be elected on the first day and 8 to be elected on the following day. Instead, without consultation of candidates or elders, the election of all seats were held behind closed doors, with 16 faces being plastered on the wall the same day. This resulted in many ministers, federal government ministers and MPs losing their seats, with the elders of the seat raising complaints with Chairman Gele, who was actually present during this election process, which was clearly a violation of not just democracy, but also the election framework agreed upon under the 27th of May agreement, which was 8 seats this day and 8 seats the following day. However, Chairman Gele done nothing about this. We also seen a similar event occur in Kismayo during the election of senators and MPs, and many know of the clear violation of democracy and the electoral process by the administration in Jubaland. However, again, Chairman Gele fails to address this point. The point I'm trying to make here is that there has been much worse violations of the agreements, the processes and democracy in general elsewhere across the country in comparisons to the ones being raised against Southwest states. And they have not been addressed despite complaints being raised by ministers, MPs, clan elders. What makes it worse is that even the clan elders of seat 86 held by Fad Yassin came out in support of the newly elected MP to represent them. However, FEIT has completely ignored this and continues to stick to the point that clan elders have rejected the seat. Now, Fad Yassin went on further to raise a complaint with the Somali Supreme Court, and in a statement, the Supreme Court chairman outlined that the Supreme Court can make decisions on this matter and will do so in the near future. Now, Loftegren went further and exposed the level of meddling and interference within FEIT by the office of the Prime Minister, explaining, following the press release, he called Chairman Gip. Now, Loftegren went further and exposed the level of meddling and interference within FEIT by the office of the Prime Minister. Now, he told MPs and senators in that statement that following the press release that was released by FEIT regarding the 4 seats, he called Chairman Gale directly about the statement and asking why the FEIT chairman released this statement if it was agreed upon literally a day earlier that these seats were not going to be held. Now, Gale denied having any knowledge of the statement, despite the fact that it was written using his name. And when asked by President Loftegren why he did not raise this issue, Gale expressed concern for his well-being. Now, additionally, in a statement released by other members of FEIT, led by former chairman Erro, FEIT members rejected the statement released to hold the election of the 4 seats. And in response, the Prime Minister sacked 2 members, including Erro himself, and sent warnings to other members that opposed the decision. Now, this isn't the first time the Prime Minister Roble and his allies used intimidation to coerce the committee. I think we all remember last year when the Prime Minister appointed Security Minister Abdullah Mohamed Noor led himself a group of security forces to evict FEIT members from the government-paid hotel in response to Chairman Erro's opposition and lack of cooperation. What makes matters worse is that President Loftegren alleged and exposed that the FEIT social media pages are currently directly or indirectly controlled by the Deputy Information Minister and close ally of Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble Al-Adala. Now, this explains the constant contradictory statements that were being released by members of FEIT on one side and the official FEIT social media pages on the other, which only created confusion amongst Somalis. So the main question that we're asking on this program is, has FEIT lost its integrity? And the answer is yes. FEIT was intended to be an independent electoral body. This means independent from federal member states and independent from the office of the Prime Minister. Therefore, the Prime Minister doesn't have the authority to just simply unilaterally remove and appoint FEIT members without consultation with the National Consultative Council leaders, which are obviously Puntland, Jubaland, Hirshabelle, Southwest States, Galmudug, and so on and so forth. The use of intimidation, additionally, to force decisions, and the simple fact that the FEIT's page is allegedly run by a member of the federal government, Deputy Minister of Information, means that it has become a biased and, of course, not an independent body, and losing its integrity as an independent electoral body. So what happens next? Well, the MP's inauguration and Senator's inauguration cannot happen without all MPs being present. Now, while it can in theory occur, it's best that it shouldn't, because that would imply that the federal system is broken and there isn't unity, or there isn't a sense of equality between some federal member states and others. The political consequences are grave in that situation. Secondly, many have been arguing about the idea of a quorum. Now, a quorum in Parliament first requires all MPs and senators to be sworn in. You can't have a quorum if all the MPs were not initially sworn in. You can't have a quorum if all the senators haven't been sworn in. Once there has been an inauguration ceremony and MPs are officially MPs and senators are officially senators, then MPs and senators have the decision to attend Parliament or not. And if they don't attend Parliament, then of course the Speaker would resort to the idea of a quorum. Now, this means automatically that the election of the speakers of both houses and deputy speakers and finally the president will not happen until the impasse is resolved. And the impasse with Southwest State isn't the only impasse. Gedo remains an impasse in Jubaland with no solution in sight as of yet. So what is the best course of action right now? I would advise the government and FEIT is to release the 4 seats currently being held, to allow the majority completion of Parliament, and to put focus on the 16 seats that remain in Gerbahare. And this would allow there to be an increase in confidence of the electoral process in Somalia from the international community, and it would allow the swift and faster completion of the seats in Gerbahare, because all energy, time and commitment will be put to those 16 seats and finding a solution to the impasse, rather than there being continued roadblocks and problems that only continue to dither and to delay the election process.